Have you ever had your entire world flipped upside down in a single moment? 1 second, you're just living your normal life, and the next, you're staring into the eyes of people you love, realizing they think you're a criminal. That's exactly what happened to me. And to this day, the memory of flashing red and blue lights outside my house makes my stomach twist in knots. I wasn't perfect. Nobody is. But I had never, ever done anything close to breaking the law. I was the kind of person who returned extra change if a cashier gave me too much. I avoided drama, tried to keep my head down, and just wanted to live peacefully. So imagine the shock when my own family, the people who were supposed to know me better than anyone, looked at me as if I were capable of theft, lies, and betrayal. It all started on an ordinary evening. Nothing about that day suggested disaster was waiting just around the corner. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet, and I remember feeling strangely calm, almost content. If someone had told me that within hours I would be accused of something I didn't do, humiliated in front of my neighbors, and nearly dragged into a police car, I would have laughed in disbelief. But life has a cruel way of testing you when you least expect it. The sound of sirens at night still echoes in my mind. They weren't meant for me, not really. Yet they came because of me, or rather, because of what someone wanted everyone to believe about me. Betrayal stings, but betrayal mixed with fear, suspicion, and flashing lights, that kind of pain cuts deep, deeper than anything I thought I could endure. This is a story of how I was framed for something I didn't do, how the people I trusted most turned against me, and how the truth, though it eventually came out, changed everything forever. Life has a strange way of disguising chaos as routine. Looking back now, I realize the warning signs were there, small, almost invisible cracks forming beneath the surface. At the time, though, everything felt normal, almost boring. That week had been like any other. I woke up early, got ready, and went about my usual routine. My parents were their usual selves, Dad grumbling about bills over his morning coffee. Mom reminded me about the chores I had forgotten to do the day before. My younger brother, Daniel, sat at the table scrolling on his phone, smirking at something he refused to share. Nothing out of the ordinary, nothing alarming. Daniel and I had always had one of those love-hate sibling relationships. We weren't enemies, but we weren't exactly best friends either. He was clever, sharp-tongued, and often got away with things simply because he had mastered the art of innocence. He'd smile at our parents, crack a joke, and suddenly he wasn't the one in trouble anymore. More often than not, the blame slid right onto me. It was frustrating, sure, but I learned to brush it off. At least I thought I did. That evening, after finishing up homework and half-heartedly helping Mom with dinner, I remember feeling at peace. It wasn't a special kind of peace, just the ordinary kind that comes when a house is calm and you're surrounded by familiar faces. My parents were in the living room, talking about some upcoming family event. Daniel was in his room, probably gaming with his friends. And me? I was stretched out on my bed, scrolling through my messages, feeling oddly content with the stillness of it all. If only I had known. Because even in that calm, something was happening behind the scenes. Something I couldn't see. A secret brewing in the shadows of my own home. Later, I would learn that while I was lying there, my brother had been busy setting the stage for a performance that would nearly ruin me. The strange thing is, little moments should have tipped me off. Earlier that day, Daniel had been unusually quiet around me, glancing at me with that mischievous smirk he often wore when he was hiding something. At dinner, he had asked me oddly specific questions about my backpack, like whether I kept it locked or if I ever left it in the living room unattended. I laughed it off, thinking he was just being nosy. Now I know better. At the time, though, everything felt safe, predictable, calm, but calmness has a way of lulling you into blindness, and I never saw the storm coming. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that betrayal never comes from strangers. Strangers can hurt you, sure, but they can't shatter you, not the way family can. And in my case, the person setting me up wasn't some outsider. It was my own brother. The day after that calm, ordinary evening, life seemed to roll forward without a hitch. I went to school, came home, and tossed my backpack carelessly into the corner of my room like I always did. Nothing looked different. Nothing felt off. But that was exactly how the trap was meant to work. Quiet, invisible, waiting. Daniel had always been clever, sometimes too clever for his own good. He knew how to twist situations, how make himself look like the golden child, while painting me as the careless one. To him, this wasn't just about a ring. It was about power, attention, control. And that night, he made his move. I was in the shower when it happened. The water was running, drowning out the faint creak of my bedroom door as it opened. My room wasn't locked. Why would it be? I never thought I needed to protect myself from my own brother. But while steam fogged up the bathroom mirror, Daniel slipped inside my room like a shadow. In his hand was the perfect weapon, a silver ring. Not just any piece of jewelry, but Mom's ring, the one Dad had given her on their 10th anniversary. She kept it tucked safely in her jewelry box, and she never left it lying around. If it went missing, people would notice. And when they found it in my possession, well, Daniel knew exactly how that would look. He unzipped the side pocket of my backpack and slid the ring deep inside, beneath a stack of loose papers and a half-eaten granola bar I'd forgotten about. He zipped it back up carefully, placed the bag exactly where it had been, and slipped out as quietly as he'd entered. By the time I came out of the shower, towel in my hair, everything appeared perfectly normal. My backpack was still in the corner, my bed still messy, my room exactly as I'd left it. I didn't suspect a thing. Later that evening, Daniel's act began. He wandered into the living room where Mom was folding laundry and me scrolling on my phone. His voice was casual, but his words had a sharp edge. "Hey, Mom," he said, almost too innocently. "Didn't you wear your ring yesterday? I haven't seen it since." Mom frowned, looking up. "It's in my jewelry box, Daniel. Don't touch my things." Daniel shrugged, feigning indifference, just wondering. It'd be bad if someone misplaced it. His eyes flicked toward me for the briefest moment, and a smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. My stomach tightened, though I didn't yet know why. I rolled my eyes and went back to scrolling, completely unaware that he'd just tightened the first knot of rope around me. It was brilliant in its cruelty. Simple, subtle, and impossible to trace back to him. At least, not right away. Because in just a few days, that ring would be discovered in my bag. And when it was, my life would spin out of control. The setup was complete. It began with Mom's voice echoing through the house, sharp and panicked. "Where's my ring?" she demanded, her tone carrying that edge of fear only mothers have when something precious is gone. I was in my room, half asleep over a book, when the sound jolted me upright. At first, I didn't think much of it. Mom misplaced things all the time. Her glasses, her keys, the remote control. I expected she'd find it in a few minutes. But this time was different. Daniel's voice was the next thing I heard, dripping with false innocence. "Did you check everywhere, Mom? Maybe someone took it?" That single word, took, felt like a blade sliding between my ribs. I walked into the living room, confused. "What's going on?" I asked. Mom spun toward me, eyes wild. "My ring is missing. The one your father gave me. It's not in the jewelry box. It's not anywhere." My father stood nearby, frowning. He wasn't saying much, but his silence was heavy, like a judgment already forming. Daniel crossed his arms and tilted his head, wearing that innocent mask he perfected over the years. "Maybe we should check around the house, like in people's bags." My heart skipped a beat. The casual way he said it, the deliberate emphasis. It was like a spotlight suddenly turning on me. Why would it be in anyone's bag? I snapped, my voice sharper than I intended. Daniel shrugged, feigning indifference. "I don't know. Sometimes people keep things by accident, or maybe not." That was enough to ignite suspicion. My mother's eyes narrowed on me, her breathing quick and uneven. Dad finally spoke, his voice low. "Check your bag." For a moment, the room tilted. The air grew heavy. My chest tightened as dread spread through me. I hadn't touched a ring. I hadn't even thought about it. But still, my hands trembled as I walked to my room, every step echoing like a drumbeat of doom. I unzipped the side pocket of my backpack, the one I hadn't opened in weeks. And there it was, the silver ring, gleaming under the dim yellow light of my room, sitting right where Daniel had left it. No! I whispered, my throat going dry. This isn't mine. I didn't put this here. But my parents were already in the doorway, staring at the evidence. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad's face darkened, his disappointment heavy and suffocating. Why would you do this? Mom's voice cracked, a mix of heartbreak and fury. I didn't. I cried, panic clawing at my chest. I swear I don't know how it got there. Daniel stepped forward, his expression perfectly crafted to look both wounded and smug. I told you something was off, he said softly. I hate to be right about this. That was the moment everything shattered. Mom turned to Dad. We have to do something. We can't just let this go. Dad's jaw clenched. His words were measured, deliberate, and terrifying. If you're stealing from this family, then maybe you need to learn what real consequences feel like. I felt my world tilt. My knees nearly buckled. No, please, you can't believe this. It's not true. But no one listened. Within the hour, a call was made. Not to a relative, not to a neighbor, but to the police. And the sirens that followed would burn themselves into my memory forever. The sirens arrived faster than I thought possible. The moment those flashing red and blue lights cut through the curtains, my stomach dropped. Neighbors peeked out from their windows, their silhouettes framed in the glow, curious about what scandal was unfolding on our doorstep. I stood frozen in the living room, my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. Mom paced back and forth, wringing her hands, whispering under her breath. Dad stood tall and stern, arms crossed, his jaw clenched tight. And Daniel? He sat on the couch, pretending to look nervous, though the gleam in his eyes betrayed him. He wanted this. The knock came, loud, commanding, impossible to ignore. Dad opened the door, and 2 officers stepped inside, their uniforms neat, their expressions sharp. The atmosphere shifted instantly. This wasn't a family argument anymore. This was official. This was serious. What seems to be the problem tonight? One of them asked. My mother's voice trembled as she spoke. My ring, my anniversary ring. It went missing, and we found it in my child's bag. She gestured at me, her voice cracking on the word child as though even saying out loud wounded her. Both officers turned to me. Their eyes swept over me, calculating, assessing. I raised my hand slightly, defensively. I didn't take it, I said quickly, my voice shaking. It's not mine. I swear I don't know how it got there. One officer asked calmly, Can we see the item? Dad handed it over, the silver band glinting under the ceiling light, like a damning piece of evidence. I wanted to scream, to tear the walls down around me, but my throat locked up. All I could do was watch as the officer turned the ring in his gloved fingers, nodding slightly. All right, he said, we'll need to ask you a few questions. I felt my knees wobble as they guided me to sit at the dining table. My parents hovered nearby, their silence louder than any accusation. I answered every question desperately. Where I'd been, what I'd done, how I had no reason to take the ring. My words tumbled out in a frantic rush, but the more I spoke, the guiltier I seemed, because that's the cruel thing about being framed. The truth sounds like a lie when no one wants to believe you. One of the officers leaned back in his chair, studying me. You understand this is theft, right? And in some cases, theft within a family is reported formally. Do you have any idea how this ring got into your bag? My mouth opened, but nothing came out. My eyes flicked toward Daniel. He met my gaze for a split second, then looked away, his lips twitching in the faintest smirk. That's when the realization hit me, like a punch to the chest. He had done this. He had set me up. And if I didn't find a way to prove it, the police, my own parents, everyone would believe him. And I wasn't sure how much longer I could fight alone. The officers didn't arrest me that night, but their questions dug deeper than I ever imagined. They spoke with a calmness that only made me more nervous, as if they already believed the crime had been solved and I was the culprit. Let's walk through it again, one officer said, flipping open his notepad. When did you last see the ring before it was found? I clenched my fists. Never. I don't even go near Mom's jewelry box. Mom shot me a wounded look. "Don't lie," she whispered. "You've been in my room before." My chest tightened. Of course I'd been in her room. Everyone in the family had at some point. But now, even something innocent sounded incriminating. The other officer leaned forward, his gaze steady. "So you're saying someone else planted in your bag?" The word planted rang in my ears like a lifeline. "Yes," I said quickly. "That's exactly what happened. I don't know who, but it wasn't me." Daniel, who had been sitting quietly on the couch, suddenly spoke up. His voice was low, hesitant, performative. "Look, I don't want to blame anyone, but I did see my name near Mom's room the other day, and they've been acting weird lately." My jaw dropped. "That's a lie," I shouted, standing up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. "You're making this up." "Enough," Dad barked, his voice thundering through the room. "Sit down. You've caused enough embarrassment tonight." I sat, my entire body trembling. No one believed me. Not Mom, not Dad, not even the officers who were supposed to seek the truth. It was like being trapped in quicksand. The more I struggled, the deeper I sank. But then, cracks started forming in Daniel's perfect story. The officer with the notepad tilted his head. "You said you saw your sibling near the jewelry box. When was that exactly?" Daniel hesitated for a fraction of a second. "Too long. A few days ago." The officer pressed. "Morning or night?" "Night," Daniel answered quickly. My heart pounded. "Got you, I thought." Mom frowned. "That's strange. I was in my room every night this week. You weren't even home 2 nights ago, remember? You were at your friend's place." Daniel's face paled for a split second before he forced a nervous laugh. "Oh, maybe I'm mixing up the days." The officers exchanged a glance. It wasn't proof, not yet, but it was a thread. One small thread unraveling his web of lies. I grabbed it with everything I had. "Check the jewelry box." I blurted out, "Check if there are fingerprints on the lid. If you really think I stole it, prove it." One officer sighed, jotting something down. "We'll need to review everything. But right now, this doesn't add up." For the first time all night, hope flickered inside me. It was small, fragile, but was enough to remind me the truth has a way of clawing its way out, even from the deepest shadows. And Daniel had just made his first mistake. The next day, the officers returned to follow up. By then, the house felt like a battlefield. Mom barely spoke to me. Dad avoided eye contact, and Daniel strutted around like he'd won some invisible trophy. Every glance he threw my way carried the same unspoken message. You'll never prove it. But the thing about lies is that they're fragile. One wrong word, one slip, and they crumble. The officers began by asking more questions, this time with sharper edge. "We've been reviewing the statements," one of them said. "Something isn't lining up." Daniel shifted in his seat, his smirk faltering for the first time. The officer tapped his pen against the notepad. "You claimed you saw your sibling near the jewelry box at night, but your mother confirmed you weren't home that night. Can you clarify?" Daniel stammered, his confidence cracking. I meant another night. Maybe the morning. I don't really remember." The other officer leaned forward. "Funny, you were pretty certain before." The room grew still. Even Mom's face began to harden with doubt. I seized the moment. "Check the fingerprints," I said, my voice steady for the first time. "If I stole it, my prints would be all over the ring. But if Daniel planted it..." I let the sentence hang, heavy with implication. Silence fell. The officers exchanged a glance, then nodded. One of them carefully bagged the ring for testing. Daniel's composure broke. "This is ridiculous," he snapped. "You're all believing them over me? They're just making excuses because they got caught." But the desperation in his tone only made him sound guiltier. And then came the final blow. "Actually," Dad said slowly, his voice thick with suspicion, "I remember something. Yesterday afternoon, I saw you in our room, Daniel. You said you were looking for Mom's hairbrush. But the brush was on the dresser the whole time." Mom's eyes widened. "Daniel, were you in my jewelry box?" Daniel froze. His mouth opened, but no words came out. His silence was the loudest confession he could have given. The officers didn't need more. "That's enough for us to proceed," one said firmly. "Looks like we've been focusing on the wrong sibling." Relief flooded through me, so suddenly it made me dizzy. For hours, I've been carrying the crushing weight of guilt for something I hadn't done. Now, finally, the truth was out in the open, and the chain around my neck began to loosen. But the damage, the betrayal, the humiliation couldn't be undone. Daniel had tried to destroy me. And even though he'd failed, part of me knew things in this family would never be the same again. The truth may have set me free, but it didn't heal the wounds. When the officers left, the house felt heavy with silence. Mom sat on the couch, her hands trembling as she stared at the floor. Dad paced the room, his anger barely contained. Not at me this time, but at Daniel. And Daniel, he couldn't even look at me. His face was pale, his smirk gone, his shoulders slumped under the weight of being exposed. "I trusted you," Mom whispered to him, her voice breaking. "Why would you do something like this to your own sibling?" Daniel mumbled something about it being a joke that went too far, but no one believed him. His lies had already poisoned enough of our family. And the word joke couldn't erase the image of police lights flashing across our front yard. For me, the hardest part was his betrayal. It was my parents. The way their eyes had filled with doubt when they looked at me. The way they believed him so easily. Cut deeper than anything else. That night replayed in my mind like a broken record. Mom's heartbreak. Dad's disappointment. The officers' questions. The neighbors whispering as a patrol car sat outside. Even though I was innocent, I didn't feel vindicated. I felt hollow. Over the next few days, my parents tried to make amends. They apologized, cooked my favorite meals, told me they should have trusted me. But their words couldn't erase the memory of their silence when I needed them most. Trust, once broken, doesn't snap back into place like nothing happened. It cracks, and those cracks remain. As for Daniel, his punishment was harsh, grounded indefinitely, privileges stripped away, watched like a hawk. But honestly, that didn't matter to me anymore. No grounding could undo the damage he had caused. I learned something that week. Sometimes the worst prisons aren't built from bars, but from suspicion, doubt, and betrayal. Being accused of something you didn't do isn't just humiliating. It changes the way you see people forever. And even now, when I look at my family, a part of me wonders if they'll ever really see me the same way again.